Hi guys. So I like to say thank you for your patience, and I'm coming out with another story. This one is actually one of my favorites. It's called the Bethesda Cult, which is a mysterious Fallout 4 conspiracy written by R.T. Maxim. So I got this on the creepypasta website. I'll link it down below, and you guys can go ahead and check it out for yourself. And yeah, here's the story. There I was, sweating in my uncomfortable seat, surrounded by the sounds of obnoxious, unsynchronized clapping. Todd Howard had just made his unusual appearance on an annual E3 Gaming Expo stage. The crowd was anxious, awaiting their anticipated announcement, ready to possibly be disappointed. Myself, I wasn't at the expo during the claustrophobic mania for some video games. Don't get me wrong, I enjoy a good RPG every once in a while, but that wasn't my intention on the day in question. I was focused on Howard's body language, the glare in his eye, looking for any subtle off movements, his choice of dialogue. There had been something bugging me for some time now, and that I have a firm and dedicated belief for. Todd and the company of Bethesda are in fact part of a secret cult. I know how crazy it sounds, but please, just hear me out. Allow me to take you back to the traumatizing experience that started all of this. Orange, red, yellow. The leaves brought an offset of colors to an otherwise gloomy autumn day. The season also happened to be prefixed to the disc that was held in my hands. Fallout 4. I was a little late to having my try at the game, as I picked it up around November of last year. Still, I was pretty excited to give it a go, as glanced a lot of popularity after all. With the game and my PS4 console, I recall myself sitting on the bed for hours on end. I was fully absorbed into the wasteland-filled virtual environment, forgetting about the spilled cup of cola on the floor next to my feet and a fallen slice of pizza on my bed sheets. The real world around me was, ultimately, non-existent. It wasn't until my controller died and that really peeked through again. However, I only used this moment of clarity to freak out and quickly plug in a charging cable between my system and controller. I had to hurry and jump back into the Fallout universe. This is where I felt like it was worth something. This is where I didn't feel alone. Fallout 4 was a game where I could build, fight, and help people in need. The settlement crafting system pulled me in, allowing me to create houses out of resources I worked so hard for. Enemies that got in my way, I would fend off using practical weapons I made myself. On quests, I found mutants and irritated hostiles, the likes of which led me to achievements. These accolades made me feel great and wanted in this made-up reality. Finally made my life livable that didn't happen to be perception or recreational drugs. My virtual ecstasy, however, came to an abrupt halt. I began noticing some things out of the ordinary. Even for a game of fantasy, I came up with these electronic terminals in the game and noticed some patterns where I was in a shopping mart, a library, or a museum. The same word would pop up on the terminals, along with the rest of the text. I never really noticed until I saw it appear in multiples on some of the screens. The word that stuck to my attention was end. Most would bat an eye at this, though. I mean, the game is set in post-apocalyptic world, so the word end is rather fitting. For some reason or another, it didn't feel fitting to me at all. I see this word pop up all the time throughout my life. Everyone has that magic number that seems to follow them everywhere they go, whether it's a lucky 7 or an unlucky 13. Well, mine is the word end. I see it inside a gas station, grocery store, the daily newspaper, even cereal boxes. This word constantly being thrown at me. As soon as I started noticing this, I decided to look at one more terminal in the game. I came across one that was fairly easy to get. There was much disturbance, just some destroyed cars, no enemies in sight. The terminal didn't seem unusual at first. The same common words popped up on the monitor, then something obstructed the screen. The entire thing filled up with my least favorite word. Typed over and over, it sped up gradually, eventually getting to the point that my eyes couldn't keep up. I was wildly confused, wondering if this was just part of the video game or if that I turned off the game, not caring about where or when I was last saved my progress. I was far too spooked to continue. Later that evening, I shared an experience with one of my close friends while hanging out at this house. I told him I finally gave the game a shot and mentioned what happened. Hoped he wouldn't judge me and perhaps, what I was, or at least know what I was talking about. My question, to my dismay, were not answered. I put hundreds of hours into Fallout. That isn't anything I've witnessed in my playthroughs, he stated. This led me to believe that I had simply played the game for so long that it had taken a toll on my mental state somehow. This theory just made me feel worse. Walking back home that day, my phone kept ringing for all sorts of numbers, all of which I assume were telemarketers, considering I didn't recognize the number. I ignored them for a while, but there was one I decided to answer. Hello? I questioned with a cautious tone. Hey, this is GameStop. Your copy of Fallout 4 you ordered has arrived from the warehouse. You can come by and pick it up anytime. We're open until 9 p.m. today. Oh, thank you, I responded in a confused fashion. I started answering more calls, my cell phone being bombarded with new numbers after another, perplexed with the understatement of which to describe my mind. At that point in time, each phone call was from a different GameStop. At least a dozen or so came across the country calling to tell me I had a copy of Fallout 4 ready to pick up. At this point, I was more frustrated than confused. I assumed my friend was playing some sort of prank at my expense. I eventually began blocking the numbers as they came in, despite knowing where the calls were more than likely to come from. Something about the ordeal wasn't sitting well with me. To make matters worse, something far more particular happened upon opening the door to my home. I didn't walk through the doorway, not in the slightest. As soon as my door opened, I found myself sitting on my bed, controller in hand, looking directly at my TV screen. It was tough for me to explain, but it felt as if I never left the house. The game itself was still running. Stopped right where I left off, the word end plastered across the terminal screen and yet again multiplying rapidly. I shot up from my bed and unplugged both my television and my PlayStation. I looked up and noticed something. Everything in the room was just how I left it, but the walls, they were undoubtedly different. The word end surrounded the perimeter of my bedroom, written in all different colors and sizes. At first I was outraged, wondering who had broken into my home and vandalized my room. I thought it might have been my friend pulling out all the stops and severely spooking me. If so, it was working. This explanation fell flat when I realized that the word painted across my room was written in my own handwriting. But hold on. How does that make any sense? A harmless glitch hallucination? And writing on the walls? What does it all mean? Well, at this point I wasn't sure, but I knew I had to get to the bottom of it. Without a better plan in mind, I decided to go directly to the source, Todd Howard himself. And this what brought me to a room full of boisterous clamor. Waiting for a presentation to be over, I grew anxious sitting there, hoping I could speak with Mr. Howard. I didn't know what he would say or even if he believed me, but I was a slave of my own wishful thinking. Perhaps he could explain all my worries away and put my mind at ease once and for all. Unfortunately for me, my issue couldn't be fixed with a patch or an update. My heart racing. Finally came a time everyone left the seats and my legs were shaking, but mostly from sitting there for such a long period of time. Just as I was about to stumble through the exit and head to backstage, a man grabbed me by the arm and pulled me aside. It was none other than Todd Howard to answer my prayers. "About time, sir. We've been expecting you," he exclaimed. "You have? Of course. I've been waiting for you to get the hint to finally come join us." Please don't tell anyone," he replied. "Join you for what?" "I'm gathering a number of people to help us at Bethesda to start a doomsday plan. I'm not at liberty to say what or why any of you others have been chosen, but I can tell you that we are using Fallout as a net, to capture those that can be used to us. It also foreshadows what the world will look like in the near future. That's if, of course, you and the others are willing to join us. We can do it in our own. What would happen, hypothetically speaking, if I don't join? Well, you're free to do whatever you'd like, but the end has already begun, and if you don't help us, someone will take your place, and I just know that you'll regret it. The clock is ticking." Mr. Howard handed me a business card upon which was the text, "Pre-register for your spot in the end list today," along with a 1-800 number. I took the card and went back to my hotel room to get some rest and process everything. It'd be a nice way to relax and hopefully cope with the strange events occurring in my life. I would soon find that relaxation was nowhere near within reach. Entering my room, anger and distortion came over me. The TV in the hotel room was lit up with a copy of Fallout 4 playing. It was stuck on the same screen as the word "end" typed all over. It was just like it was back in November, on that November day. As if wasn't enough, my phone raging through this time a number I recognized. "Hey Dad, what's up?" I answered with, as if I normally did when my father called. "Hey, sorry to bother you during your trip, but I have some upsetting news to share with you. Your brother, he just passed away moments ago." "Wait, what? How?" I shouted out in shock and despair. I never was close to my brother, with him always being away at war and whatnot. It sounded horrible, but it felt like he was more distant relative than a sibling. Even still, my heart sunk. The nurses aren't completely sure, but they claimed radiation poisoning was the fault. I find that questionable because no bombs have been dropped near the location. They're going to do further analysis in the coming week to let us know. I'll be back in town as soon as possible. Please, keep me updated. If any other information comes up, I'm not sure how to handle this. I was just talking to him a couple of days ago. I let out with a long single tear of pure grief. I will, son. This is just as hard as it is for me. And it'll be devastating for as long as this world lasts. He'll be looking down on us smiling. At least he's in a better place. My father said in a tone of hurt and heartache. He then changed the subject, probably to lightening the mood a bit, something he accurately did to avoid dealing with more serious issues. "Hey, by the way, I have a piece of mail I found stuck to my door tonight. Pretty odd for a Sunday. It has my name on it, but I think it's for you. It says something about a Fallout 76 beta invitation, and it has the word "end" written all over it. Do you want it?" I hung up on my own father. I'm not sure why or how I found myself in this ongoing nightmare, but it feels like I'm trapped in my own apocalypse. Take these words however you would like. Believe in what you want. The Bethesda is not a game company. Todd Howard is up to something, and this is the start of the end. Well, that was a good story, actually. That wasn't bad. I actually liked it. Yeah, like I stated before, it was my favorite. Anyways, so thank you for listening to my story. And again, thank you so much for your patience. I'm so glad I'm actually back. Just had some, issues I had to deal with for a while. And, it was mostly motivational issues, though. But I don't think you guys really want to hear that, though. Anyways, if there's any creepypastas you want me to read or review, don't be afraid to leave them in the comment section. Or even just suggest one that I could try writing. I mean, it may not be perfect, but, it would be a creepypasta nonetheless, though. At least within my original standards. But anyways, hope you have a spooky night, and see ya.